How you doing, Joe?
Doing well. Great to be back here, and great to see you because I actually haven't seen you for properly had a sit down for a while. It's you've been busy boy, I've been a busy boy.
Yeah.
Life's good for both of us really so far. So no, always lovely to chat to you, and I will say this is about the most professional setup I've had for a podcast ever. So I've got to be professional as well to match the setup.
Well, that's the definition of you, Joe. You're a very professional man.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Just making use of this the camera equipment that Chris, our manager, has set up. This is a 40k studio, basically not really studio, but 40k budget that was needed for all of this, and he uses it for one of the modules. So you look at all this and you think 3 cameras, studio lighting, studio desk,
crazy.
Sound desk.
It's crazy.
What more do you need?
It is crazy. I wasn't expecting this. I really wasn't. I mean, thank you, Chris. Thank you. Even I've never met you, probably won't ever meet you. I'm not doing a film or communications degree, but no, thank you for taking the time to keep this place in check, because this is a setup and a half, and I will admit it wasn't what I was expecting.
Are you intimidated or excited or?
By this point, I don't think I can get intimidated when I've been given the all clear to talk on BBC Radio, and I've got about 10 seconds notice, and it's just, right, let's go over to Joseph Terry, and I've just got to talk immediately. I think pressure doesn't really hit you as hard by that point, because it's just do or die really. You've got to start talking.
Yeah, because you said you got back, was it
midnight?
Midnight from Torquay, wasn't it?
1 o'clock from Torquay. I mean, it's been a blessing, that, because, for those who don't know, I've been lucky to do stuff with BBC Radio Devon, and I've been lucky to be a match commentator, do productions, work on Twitter, online, cutting clips, doing match commentary. It's been a blessing. It's been just a blessing, and it's actually taught me a lot, I think, about that professional workspace, because I'm moving away from that uni scene where people are being professional, but that isn't really expected of you. That's almost the exception to the rule, let's say. And then you move into that professional workspace, and it's no, get on with it. This is what's expected of you, and that's the level that's been set and the standard for you to meet. And I hope I've been hitting that so far. Seems like I have been.
I'm pretty sure you would be if you wouldn't have had that level of standard if you weren't working for the BBC. So
well, yeah,
it's well deserved.
That's why I hope. Thank you, Tom. It's just it is a step up still, because it is that intimidation factor a bit, because for the first time ever, basically, I'm getting people talking to me or talking about me who have never seen me ever before. I'd commentated a game, Exeter City versus Bristol Rovers, away from home, and I went on the fan forums of Exeter City, and there were people searching up my name on Google. Yeah, people searching up my name on Google. What's this guy's Twitter? What's this guy's LinkedIn? Some good comments, some bad comments, some comments that were just out of line.
What were the good and bad?
Well, people say, oh, why is this university student commentating an Exeter City game? This guy's delivery is the worst I've heard on BBC Radio Devon. I mean, nothing serious. But also, it made me grow up a bit in terms of, well, no, this is what you're going to be expected to take a bit if you're going to try and make it in media, really. It's eye-opening. It is eye-opening, because for me, I don't really get offended by that. But it is weird that people are talking about you who you've never even seen or heard of. That's the really weird thing about it.
I think it's also weird that someone's just criticising you, online sort of thing, not to your face.
I've never met them, and they've listened to 90 minutes worth of commentary. And I don't take it that seriously, because at the end of the day, I must be doing something right if someone's criticising. That's sort of view I take. But it is a weird thing for people to be like searching up your Twitter account and going, oh, where's this guy on Twitter, and so on and so forth. It is a bizarre one to think about, because you don't quite understand why, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you could also think that some of these people that are like, stalking you and criticising you are probably like double your age or triple your age sort of thing. Some like really grown ass adults.
That's the thing that I'm also trying to deal with a bit, is that I've got to get over the imposter syndrome myself of I'm still a student. There's a level I should be working at, but I'm not quite there yet. Or do I deserve this position or this place? You are still working through that a bit, actually, and that's something that I'm trying to learn. Actually, is that I've almost got to restart now, and it's like, no, you're at the bottom as it stands now. You can only go up, if that makes sense. That the hard work has just started, really, and it's been a blessing because I've been able to be about some amazing people at BBC Radio Devon that have just been telling me the right things that I need to learn. I've been getting some great feedback on commentaries. I've been getting some great experience in terms of being in that professional workspace and using the equipment, being able to understand really what it means to be working as a journalist. I mean, it is an invaluable set of experiences, really. I'm blessed to be there.
Well, it's crazy to see your progression over the last 2 years, because do you remember it was the SRAs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That Exeter hosted.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you got all 3 red buzzers, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
For your
yeah.
demo, but 2 years later, you're now working for the BBC.
Yeah, it's crazy, really.
How crazy is that?
For reference, what Tom is talking about, so there's this sort of faux X Factor type competition they do. And it is basically built for music demos. But because I was a first year, a silly fresh who was just thinking, oh, you know what? Forget about it. Let's just put it in and we'll see what happens. So there's 5 people there that have never done sports commentary. I put in a sports commentary demo straight away. Done. That's it. And even recently, there was a weird moment because I put in stuff for the most recent awards. And I got absolutely nothing out of the nominations.
Nothing at all?
Yeah, nothing at all. Nothing at all. And I didn't care because I've got a commentary for BBC Radio in a week's time. It's okay. It's fine. It's been a crazy few months because I only picked up stuff with BBC in late August. Late August was when I got the first call from them to do stuff. And I would have completed led even my 4th commentary for BBC Radio by the end of this month, which is just...
That's insane.
Crazy to think about, really, in a space of essentially, well, it's basically 2 months, September to November.
You mentioned earlier as well you were silly fresh when you were submitting a demo.
Oh, yeah.
Would you have pictured yourself where you are now from that, from your first year?
Never a chance. Never a chance. Tom knows this. The journey I've gone over the last 2 years is crazy. And I actually, the funny thing about it is that if you look at a photo of me in first year and a photo of myself now, or just myself if you're watching, and you knew me back then, it looks like I've aged about 10 years over the space of 2 years. And I don't think I'm joking when I say that, but that's genuinely the case. I do look like I've aged about 10 years. And it's crazy. It is crazy. And I do genuinely think that I have properly started to grow up now. I'm 21 in, well, basically 2 weeks' time as of recording right now. I don't think I've grown up more than I did last year. Genuinely.
Do you think it's from the uni experience or?
Uni and life. Uni and life. It's dealing with personal things. It's dealing with things like sort of family bereavement. It's things that I think adults all experience, if that makes sense. And it all came in a year for me. It was like, right, I've got to try and work hard to get ahead in career. I've got to deal with personal rubbish. Someone's going after me. I've got to deal with the loss of a loved one. And then I've got to pull my trousers up and then start talking to BBC professionals and say to them, oh yeah, I'm free on this date to work for you. Oh yeah, I'll invoice you that thing here. I'll invoice tomorrow for the shift I did at the weekend. Like this is things that adults do every day, if that makes sense. And I've only realised that until now, I think. And I think actually that's made me a lot more calm about things.
What, the experience of life, or
Yeah, the experience of life, because I don't think that many things can genuinely fluster me, if that makes sense, as it stands.
as it
I don't think
stands?
they could genuinely get, like, I could genuinely get flustered or not really know where to go or what to do.
I guess you could, but I feel like when you experience things that you've not experienced, then that's obviously going to be different, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's more just about trying to learn from those experiences, in that I'm not perfect, no one's perfect. I'm going to at least try to be better than I was yesterday. And the nice thing about it is that yesterday over the last year was a lot of learning experiences. So actually, in a weird way, the learning's been every single day. It's been a blessing, really. I mean, I wouldn't wish sort of having to deal with what I dealt with, but looking back at it with my dark sense of humour that you know well, Tom, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because if you're able to laugh at yourself a bit, and maybe not laugh at yourself sometimes, but look back and realise, yeah, that happened, and that was what was going on, you can then learn a bit more about yourself, I think,
Yeah.
which is the important thing.
And it also helps you when you become a father as well.
Yeah, and that's something that I've talked a lot about to close friends of mine. Know that that's like a dream of mine. That is a real dream of mine, and that is, I think that's because I've been lucky to have amazing father figures in my own life. I spoke about this last year. In fact, nearly.
Was that the November show
Yeah,
we did last year?
nearly 12 months ago. That's still live on XTV Online YouTube. And I spoke about that then, and I was saying that I was blessed to have amazing male role models in my life. My dad is a caring man, but an incredibly hard-working man too. And he's able to divide that work and that personal life incredibly well. So incredibly well. And I'll always respect him for that. And also, he's the kind of man who has his troubles and his issues, but he'll never push that onto another man, another woman. He'll always just deal with it himself. And I will always respect that of him. And then, in terms of my grandparents, my dad's dad was probably, from what I've been told, because I didn't really see him very often, probably one of the most willfully hard-working people, perhaps to his own detriment. In fact, to his own detriment a large part of the time. But very much the kind of guy who, if you gave him a task, he'd do it.
Get on with
Yeah,
it.
he'd do it, and that's it.
Who was it? Your dad's dad or your mum's dad has like the really interesting backstory.
So it's
What was
so
your-
it's my mum's dad. So that's my granddad. So it's a great story. He leaves school at 15 with a maths qualification. He's grown up in a pretty bad home. He's had a brother who's been consistently favourite, and he's had real struggle in terms of in the house. He's probably been neglected at certain points. His dad has already, or is about to be declared bankrupt at age 15. And he's been shipped off to a boarding school in Worthing, where I've been told he managed to get some extra spare money by selling cigarettes around the school, because that was the way it worked in 1960-something, 1962, 1961. So that's all the backstory. Leaves school with a maths qualification, left-handed, so he isn't great at writing, but a real mind for crunching numbers and a real mind for problem solving. So he sends in a bunch of letters to garages, asking for apprenticeships, asking for the chance to go into the garage, prove he's a hard worker, and maybe they might give him a job. That's all he asks for. He sent in lots of letters. He got one back successful. Goes into a garage, becomes an apprentice. He starts off doing the most low low-level jobs in the garage, sweeping the floor. That's all he does for a large part of it, is sweeping the floor, excuse me. And he sweeps up the floor when no one else can be bothered. That's what he does, for a large part. And he ends up getting better and better at that garage and bigger. He gets more promotions. He ends up becoming more of a mechanic role. Then he ends up moving into the office. He becomes the second-hand man of the guy who's running the building that he was once sweeping the floor of. He then gets a phone call asking if he can become the director of a garage at about age 26, 27. Incredibly young. And he goes in as one of the youngest in the country, essentially. He goes in with his brain for maths, and he manages to steer the ship like no other man could. He goes in there, steers the ship, they're back making money. He keeps moving about the place, so at this point he's in Hampshire. They end up moving to my hometown, Eastbourne, where he becomes the leading manager of essentially the only garage in town. Back then, at that point, one half was houses of the town, the other half was essentially a sewage plant and a river that was a runaway for factories. So they finally start building.
Where did you say this was?
Eastbourne. So all that's going on, and then it's the first garage, Eastbourne Motor Centre. He's leading it. There are some great photos and some old magazines of articles that are written about him with old photos of him in like a typical 1980s suit and haircut in the garage from 1983. They're amazing photos. I love them. So he's there, and he's working at Eastbourne Motor Centre. Then the motor industry strikes him, and he ends up losing his job out of nowhere. Garage gets sold as the loans from the bank weren't being fulfilled. So he's really having to fight for himself now. He ends up making a good connection with one of the biggest local regional dealers in the southeast, in Sussex. And he takes that job. He starts off managing one garage, then it becomes 3, then it becomes 5, then he's overseeing 7 at once as one of the chiefs of this entire company, and as basically the confidant to the chairman of the entire board and company, family group. He retires early, and all the while he's had 2 daughters. His daughters have had grandchildren. I'm his only grandson. I don't think you can give, at least me personally, I know it's a very biased view, for me there is no better story than that in terms of resilience and also in terms of determination. Because he starts off his life with not a great start at all, and also very poor role models. And he becomes a loving, caring father, grandfather, and one of the most hardworking men I've ever known to this day. And it's a large part why, if people know me, I come off like a car nut so much. Because without cars, what's to say I'm here? What is to say I'm here? Of course, I've got 2 sides to my family. My dad's dad works hard and moves his family out of working class Wolverhampton when he's in his mid-20s. That plays a large part too. And in a weird way, I sort of do take inspiration from him as well in terms of that
Work ethic.
determination to keep working. Yeah. But moving back to my mum's dad, without the car, his life is changed forever. And also, if he doesn't get that apprenticeship, where does he end up? Where does he end up if that one manager at that one dealership doesn't give him a chance to sweep floors with a broom? And that paints my view of what hard work truly is, at least for me, because I will always say that work is work. And I'd love to do radio, but if you said to me, I'll give you a job working at a shop, or I'll give you a job working at a McDonald's, I'd take it, because work is work.
Would you do that as like a full-time thing and then have the radio stuff on the side?
Yeah, happily would. Because it doesn't matter where I'm working. I need to work hard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if I'm sweeping floors or if I'm managing 7 garages at once. Work is work.
Well, it's a sense of humility, isn't it?
Yeah, work ethic is work ethic, and being humble is being humble.
Yeah, to not look at any job as if you're better than...
No, because I'm lucky that I've grown up with a much better environment and surroundings than my grandparents had. All my grandparents had. I'm grateful for that. And I sort of know that I can't coast on that. And I've got to keep proving that work ethic. And the best thing for me about it now is that as that relationship continues to grow between myself and my mum's dad, I find myself reaching points that sometimes he isn't even reaching. He says to me now that I know more about cars than he knows. And that's coming from the man who, 20 years ago, car would drive in and he'd know who was driving that car off the reg number. The car would drive in, and even before he comes out the car, oh, Steve's coming here. Get his file ready. That's the man I'm talking about. And it's moments like that that really stick at your heart, because when he says that to you, and his life was made by cars, you can't tell me that
cars didn't have such a huge role in your life and his life as well.
Or the motor industry is not one of the heartbeats of everyday life. I will die on that hill, and particularly now, as my granddad slips more, as his memory fades, as his activities start to get slower and slower. Even now, the only thing that really takes him back and lights his face up is when you talk about cars. Because the greatest thing about it is that I've been blessed to know about all these great stories that he's told me. So he's 16, he's driving an old banger from the 1930s. And back then, those cars would have metal chassis beneath. And of course, it's a 20-year-old, 30-year-old car, it's rusting away. So is the suspension. He's going through a corner, right turn, both right side wheels shear off at once. Takes the car back to his garage. He's got a spare chassis there, and he's got a spare suspension. So he takes one of his 3 spare metal chassis, hooks it up, he's back out on the road the next day.
What a nutter.
Yeah, exactly. like when I say obsessed about cars, I mean obsessed about cars. And other great stories. He was once given a bunch of new Seat cars to drive about Valencia in the 80s. He once went to a motor show where he was forced to wear a suit which constricted his legs and his arms to simulate driving as an old person. If the brakes were too stiff, or if the steering was too heavy, or if the head restraint was too high up, maybe, and it might hurt your neck. there's a story about him going to a dealership, and the office had been noticing that there were lots of cars that were going missing from the lot. So he goes by, he's driving through town, and he spots a bunch of cars in a random garage somewhere. Brings up head office. Oh, can you run these numbers through the registration system, please? Runs them through. Turns out that these cars are being sold underhand to a random dealership in town, out the books of Caffins. Great. Fun stories like this. They're just really great to know, because for as much as one day it's likely going to be the case that he won't be able to talk to me as much as he does now, I will always hold those stories to my heart forever. Because it is a throwback to that old era of the working class man working in the garage. And that's really what I take from him, is that there is arguably no better role model for me than my granddad and my dad. And that's that really. And I think particularly as we're in November now and mental health is talking about a lot, I'm well aware that he was part of that generation where you would keep on going and ignore what you were thinking.
Yeah, I think that's the generation before social media, isn't it, really? I feel like stories like that wouldn't exist in today's world, if you know what I mean.
No.
If he'd grown up in today's society, I don't think
no.
that sort of story is being told, is it?
And that's... So I look at him as a man who's very brave and strong, because he had plenty to make him feel low, plenty to make him feel beaten down. And he chose not to be beaten down. And I will always respect him for that. Because there is nothing to say that I'm here right now without him sweeping a floor with a broom when no one else can be bothered to. It's sort of why I shrug my shoulders when people say to me in good faith and with good intention, "Oh, Joseph, you're a hard worker." I'm not a hard worker. I'm nowhere near a hard worker. I'm not. You might think I am, but I'm not.
Nothing. Is there always that comparison, do you think, to
Oh, yeah.
great granddad?
Always. Yeah, always is. I'm lucky to be where I'm at. I work hard, but also I think that example's never going to get beaten for me. I'm never going to be able to get to that point. And but I also think that's a case of trying to set myself goals and targets that are realistic and not harmful. Because I think I used to fall into the trap a lot of wanting to be perfect, wanting to do the best, and well, that drove me to burnout.
Was that your second year or
Yeah.
first year?
End of first, probably. Second year, it was starting. But in fairness, in second year, social life went out the window, so that sort of filled the gap. But these days now, I don't expect myself to be perfect. I'll do better than yesterday, but I'm not expecting myself to be perfect. And that's why I think I'm a lot more calm. Because yesterday I'm on commentary. I'm listening back to it today, and I'm spotting little errors here and there, but I'm not beating myself up about it. It's just, don't say that. Wait a bit when you're announcing the goal scorer in this. Don't jump in there. I'm not getting fed up with myself.
Well, I think that's good that you're not beating yourself up too much about it. I think it's good that you can listen to yourself and then make notes and feedback for how you improve. Because next time you do a commentary, you can remember what you went wrong or what mistakes you made or things, the little nitpicks that you picked up from the last one. You can improve on it.
You've got to detach yourself from yourself sometimes when you're trying to criticise what you're doing, or you're trying to critique what you're actually doing day to day. at least for me, I sometimes almost detach from myself sometimes. I just look at it objectively. Step out from the brain of Joseph is annoyed at this. No, just step away and go, well, right, what's going on? This is there. What can we do to solve it? One of my biggest problems is that I have a very loud inner monologue.
Is it a harsh inner monologue, or is it positive, or is it a bit of both?
Very harsh. These days, it's more neutral. But it is very loud to the point where I've almost got a third person in myself in a weird way. Well, I've got my personal sort of subjective opinions. But if I want to detach myself, I can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Just look at it objectively. Which I think is helpful, because it means that I can be honest with myself without beating myself up, really. Which is the important thing.
It's very important that you can do that. I think not enough people have that inner voice. If you know what I mean, like they could be too egotistical, or too arrogant, or just too anxious and too, not willing to try stuff. I think it's having that balance to be able to react to that inner person with their inner thoughts or inner voice and sort of getting on with it.
Yeah, as in, I can't change tomorrow. Yeah, would I have done things differently last night on commentary? Yeah, but I can't do that, can I? I've just got to move forward. I've been given today. I've been blessed to have today, and that's all I've got to deal with, really. I've just got to make today the better day. And I'll say the same tomorrow until I don't have another day. Life's quite simple in a weird way for me. The way I look at it is it's all day by day. I really don't want to look too far in the future sometimes. I like to stay day by day, because I think that grounds me in the things I can actually control. Because I can't really control the state of the world. I can't control anything that's massive and phenomenal, and anything that's a huge event. I can just control what I do, which could be as simple as just, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock this morning.
Go for a run or go to the gym or something.
That's it. It could be as simple as make sure I cook myself lunch to take into campus. Like that's the simple things that I can do. I can't solve the world's political conflicts, can I?
Or its biggest issues, no.
Yeah, I can't. So what's the point of me giving attention to it, let's say? You can give attention and not do things, I admit that. But at the end of the day, how does that benefit me? Right now, at least. Life's simple.
When do you think you came across this ethos or this, thought?
Recently. Last year. Last year it was. Because I think I learned two things. I learned, firstly, I can only respond. I can't really act a lot of the time. You can act 9 times out of 10 minutes to do with yourself, and if it's something that you're deciding to do, if it's about motivation, it's about you doing something, then I am acting. But most of the time it is a response to something else. And I learned that I couldn't change what other people did. I had to respond in the best way for myself. And I failed at many points. I fell into frustration or anger or despair, but that's normal. We're not perfect. We're going to have our weaknesses and our failures. I learnt the power of a response, and also the power of no response.
Because no response is still a response, isn't it?
Exactly. The power of saying nothing, so no one can even understand what's going on. I'm a very private person. I've said this before, that it's a shame that the career I've decided to go for means I have to be social media savvy. Because if I didn't go for this job in media and I was going for a job in any other field, I would delete Instagram, I would delete Twitter, and I'd get everyone's phone number who's a friend of mine.
I think Twitter's definitely the worst of them all. Or it's close between Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
What do you use? Is Twitter for the live posting that you do on the sport stuff?
Twitter I use for professional purposes now. And I follow 11 accounts on there. I stay well away from the For You page. I follow the 11 accounts. I use it as a rolling news feed. That's what I do. I stay well away from the hashtags, well away from the trends, well away from any of the recommended content. I just stick to that, really. But still, point stands. I'd rather just take phone numbers, ring people up. Do you want to go to the pub? Great. I don't like to give my time easily. And if I do, then it means I like you a lot, generally speaking. Because I don't... A weird thing about doing radio and just doing media, I think, to a degree, you might empathise with this a bit, is that you learn the art of the performance quite well.
How do you mean?
As in, I'm talking now, and I'm performing right now to a degree. If I was just talking normally, I'd talk like this. Hi Tom, how's David? I talk like this. But in a second, I can just go straight into it. And I can just go back into that voice that's engaging, that's going to make you listen. I'm just going to talk like this now. And that in itself is a performance, to a degree.
It's a character, isn't it?
That's
what you're playing.
It's a character. So, I'm not naturally sociable, I don't think. I don't naturally gravitate to big crowds or concerts or going out on the town. I'll gravitate to going to the pub and watching a football game on my own. Honestly, that's what I'd do. I'd be a happy man if that was it. And that's what I do on most evenings if I'm going out. Up the road, go watch football or rugby, get a pint, and just sit there and watch. That's what I'll do.
Do you know, watching the football with friends is also like one of the best things to do as well. It's so simple.
Yeah, so simple, I know.
But it's actually quite really fun.
I don't like a big plan. And so with that in mind, with that in context, I think that doing stuff with radio, you actually end up growing that character to such a level that it becomes so normal, let's say, that it's quite easy to slip in and out of it, if that makes sense.
Because you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, in a weird way, you become sociable because you know that everything is about presentation, about audience, and about who you're talking to. I think that's the key difference. Is that, I think, bizarrely for me, the better you know me, the less chatty I am. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
The less chatty I am, the closer I am to you, sometimes. Which is weird. But I think that's the way that I work now. And that's based off 3 years doing radio stuff.
I also think when you're with your friends and your close ones, you're more likely to be more quiet because you're comfortable in each other's skin.
Yeah.
Oh, like, not skin, but presence is more the better word to use.
Yeah, that's it. And that's... It's something that I do think about sometimes, in that am I just naturally predisposed to be a bit standoffish? I don't know. In fairness, I've had some pretty bad experiences when it comes to trusting people, so maybe that's the reason why. But it is a bizarre thing that if I'm closer to you, then I talk less. And that's That's a weird thing, but it's true. Because at the end of the day, I am now at least comfortable in my own head. I'm comfortable just sitting there and thinking sometimes just about what to do. And actually, for me, sitting in silence is relaxing for me. Actually, it's very relaxing for me to just quietly get on with something. Stick on some music maybe, but just in silence, just quietly relax. You take yesterday, Torquay United versus Maidstone United. Half-time whistle goes. I've trailed off back to base in Plymouth. Half-time at Plainmoor. Torquay United 0, Maidstone United 1. Do.
That one.
Radio Devon. All that's going on. And then I basically just like, yeah, well done, Sam. Yeah, well done. Good job. Solid. And then 15 minutes later, welcome back to Plainmoor, 45 minutes ahead of Torquay to save their unbeaten home record. Turn it on. You turn it on and you turn it off. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I need to figure that out myself.
I think you figure it out over time, though, don't you, really?
Yeah. I need to figure it out myself, really. Is that a good or bad thing that I can turn it on immediately? Because that's, to some people, that might seem a bit strange or a bit weird that you can turn on being sociable and turn it off, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the more, when you get older and the more you understand the impact of the outside world or some of the things that you do, like using social media and how much it impacts your actual inner dialogue itself, that's when you become more aware. If that makes sense.
Well, I figured that out myself because in my first year, I overworked myself by a long way. And I fell into the habit of following these Instagram pages that are aimed at motivation. Every single time you open your phone, make money, get status, chase women, be an alpha male. Now, I never truly believed any of it that was being said, truth be told. I never really believed a word of it. And I followed it because there was maybe 1 in every 10 posts that was interesting or struck to me. But then I realised that actually that was slowly changing the way I was thinking. And at end of first year, I just wiped them all from my account. And I immediately started feeling a bit better. Because I wasn't getting fed that work hard stuff. Because, as we've already settled, my idea of working hard is already harder than most. So you tell me to work harder.
It creates bigger imbalance, doesn't it, really?
It's going to be an unbelievable amount of expectations that you put yourself under, that it's just unsustainable, truth be told.
It's a shame that content like that exists and still does.
Yeah.
And how much it impacts the younger audiences as well. Younger than us,
It reduces
16 to 18.
It reduces the meaning of life to getting money and having materialistic wealth. And that's not true life. That isn't life. I don't really give a monkey's what your view on the world is, who you believe in, if you believe in things, if you don't. I think we should all agree that life is not dependent on the colour of your Bugatti. Is it?
No, it's very true.
Life isn't dependent on the colour of your Bugatti. And it's a shame that so many, particularly young men, but also young women as well, end up falling into that trap.
I think they miss one of the most important things in life, and that's, I would say, family and love and relationships, I'm not just talking about relationships.
Able to love.
Yeah, not just relationships in the romantic sense, but friendships,
Yeah.
Because when you're working so hard to achieve all the status, you're sacrificing all that time that you could be spending Do you know what I mean? But it's also about having that balance, though, isn't it? Obviously, you need to work to make money and pay bills, and
I think
to have a bit of a career. But you also don't want to use all that time and miss out, on spending time with family.
I think that the biggest lie that's been told by that culture is that to be vulnerable is to be weak. Not at all, sir. There's being weak, which is the opposite of strong. And there's being vulnerable, which is being strong.
Yeah, it depends on how you come across with your vulnerabilities, isn't it? Are you doing it in a way to manipulate people? That's being weak.
Yeah,
but if you're doing it in a way to be honest about how you're feeling, that's completely different, isn't it?
But also, to be vulnerable is to admit that you are human and to admit that you can be better or you have things that are going to be upsetting or things that you are not happy about. To be weak is to fall into those vulnerabilities and to fall into those insecurities. And that's not to say that if you are weak, that that's something to be ashamed of. We all need to be confident in ourselves, to be able to be strong in what we know to be true and what we know to be things that we're nervous about. To be vulnerable is to be honest and to also be strong about it and say, look, I'm nervous about this. I think about this a lot, but I know I think about it a lot. So this is what I'm trying to do to solve that.
I think that sort of attitude is very important, especially this time of the month as well. When we mentioned earlier, November, men's mental health. I think that's one of the biggest killers, isn't it? Men just don't open up and talk.
The idea of being vulnerable in itself isn't something to be ashamed of because we're all vulnerable. We're humans. We're all vulnerable. The key issue is that vulnerable as being mistaken as weak or being mistaken as taking the easy way out and not fighting for yourself. The ultimate way to fight for yourself is to be honest with somebody and then tell them in confidence that you are going to work through that. That's the ultimate way of being strong, is to look, this has been going on. I need to get better. I need to get healthy. I need to work harder at this. And then actually doing it. That's the ultimate win. If you admit where you aren't your best version of yourself and then work on it, well, you've just won everything. Because not only are you probably doing better in life and career, you're also feeling better about yourself. Because you can look back on yourself and say, well, I'm doing that now. There is no such thing as being weak by being vulnerable. And I will always stand by that. And I think that if more men were open about that and they said, right, to be vulnerable is something to be celebrated and something that we all have to do, I think we'd see a lot more better role models in men.
Yeah, 100%. Because we're getting the terrible ones now. Andrew Tate, for example.
Yeah.
There's maybe I think I agree with him in the terms of getting into good shape and take care of yourself in the gym, but most of the shit he says is just terrible.
And also, all of the good stuff that he would say in your eyes and partially in my eyes, that's all hidden beneath layers and layers of useless stuff. And that's how they catch you. They'll give you one or two things that I think objectively most people would agree with. And they'll twist it. And I think that's the ultimate form of manipulation, is manipulating that narrative to the extent that you ignore everything that is past and everything that you don't like. Because I think particularly now, as young people get caught out way more by deep fakes, by AI, by fake news online, you've got to be vigilant of what you're looking at.
I think one of the worst ones on there as well is also the culture wars
Yeah,
and the echo chambers that are developing even, and have developed from the engagement that you get from this sort of content.
because, well, it's modern media, new media, has many benefits. It's more engaging, I think it's more inclusive, and it's a lot more aware of what audiences actually want. Key issue with it is that new media is chock full of rage bait. I'm going to make you angry, so you follow that account so you can like my post and then like the next post.
And keeps going on
And
and,
it
on
keeps
and on.
going
It's
on
a
and
loop,
on.
isn't it? A feedback loop.
Yeah, so you end up within a week saying, oh, I don't mind spinach. And then a week later, oh, I really hate spinach. It's the worst vegetable of them all. That's the modern echo chamber today. And that isn't just politics. That's in everything. You see it a lot in sports media as well.
Yeah, the gym community stuff as well.
Gym community a lot as well. And that's a real shame, because people then get caught in a situation where people who don't mean offence cause offence. Happened to one of our really good friends, actually. Recently, he put something out on his Instagram story, which I think would have been seen as offensive by lots of people without realising. Did he mean wrong by that? No. He didn't mean wrong by it at all. Good as gold. But also, did it cause offence? Yes. Now, how did he get led to that point? Because he was manipulated by the algorithm.
What was his post?
It was a post which was, well, one of them was an Andrew Tate post, and the other one was a post to do with the idea of sort of, let's say, English values.
Sort of what, freedom of speech, or?
English values in terms of culture.
I see.
And this person meant no ill will. But also, did it cause ill will? Yes. I think this is where you have to be a bit careful about how you judge people. I mean, ourselves, we've both been becoming a lot more religious, and one of the key things is that the idea that humans can't judge. We can't judge. We're all sinners, we can't judge.
I think it's reminding yourself of that.
Yeah.
Because we all do judge, and then many times we do it, but there's times where we realise that we're doing it and stop ourselves from doing it. Is that?
Yeah.
That's true. But
I think that's the key thing with this case, is that I don't judge him for being manipulated into that, and he stopped posting things like that straight afterwards, because somebody messaged him and said, maybe don't post that again, and then he realised. So I don't judge him for it. Am I nervous about it? Was I nervous about it at the first point when I saw it? Yes, I was.
Were you nervous because of the him being your friend, and then that link of someone?
Nervous,
Maybe someone find that link.
Not really, because I'd like to think that if people know me, they know me for my reputation. Because I think everyone's reputation is unique to their own. My reputation is my reputation. It's my job to uphold my reputation. No one else's.
Yeah. Do you know what? I do though think it is a shame, because some people overlook your reputation for one thing that you've posted or one thing that you said. If you know what I mean, they always forget the good and they remember the bad stuff.
And I think that's the reason why I was nervous, because I sat there thinking, I've got no reason to believe that he truly believes what he's just posted. He's been caught down a rabbit hole somewhere. He's been led astray, and he's ended up looking like a bit of an idiot. Is it his fault? Yes, because you should be so naive to post that without thinking you're going to get some pushback. But also, people will still judge.
Do you think it was going to get worse? This sort of judgment and social media stuff?
I don't think it can get any worse than it already has. The court of public opinion is mighty powerful. I don't think it can get worse. And I think it's going to stay like this for a very long time.
Unless there's
And it's partially why, even as you would have figured out in this interview, I'm telling you things about myself that I'm happy talking. I know fully well what I'm not talking about today. I know fully well what I'm not talking about. Because there is the chance that whoever's watching this could see this, get offended at me.
Take it out of context.
And then write me up.
Well, it's also part of your role as the BBC, isn't it? Is to have a central.
And also, on the point of that, I think one reason why I suit the BBC stuff so much is that I think naturally I'm just a private person, that I don't go about telling people stuff that's going to put my name in disrepute. I don't go about telling people who I vote for, what I think about this.
If you're a Christian, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing that you don't really go on and just like tell everyone. You sort of, if someone asks, what have you been doing? You say you go to church, sort of thing. And then they happen to ask, oh, you're Christian or something.
Exactly.
And then, you admit to it.
So I'm never going to be somebody who you know everyone, who you know everything about, and then that's chasing me all the time, and that I'm going to wake up at night thinking, they know that's public. Because I think we're always on trial now when it comes to what we post online. You've always got to be putting your best foot forward. I believe that fully. And I think that's a good thing, because it means that people are getting the scrutiny on them that they deserve. I don't think it's too ridiculous for somebody to say that they should stay within the lines of common decency, respect, and respect for others at all times. And before, it was easier than ever to get away with not following those rules, when we weren't living in an interconnected world where people were able to
be abusive, manipulative.
Yeah.
Get away with stuff.
And also people were able to tell somebody something in a second. It was one person's word against another person's word. We live in a different world now. And the people who deserve scrutiny, the people who deserve to learn from their mistakes, and also deserve forgiveness, get scrutiny. And I think that's a good thing. Because I think you should be confident within yourself that you have very little or no demons that you don't want people to know. I've got things people don't want. Look, I've got things that I don't want people to know, but it's nothing that I'm going to think is going to be damaging.
It's not a skeleton in the closet,
It's
is it?
embarrassing, but not. It's embarrassing or traumatic, but it's not going to be something that's going to damage me. I'm not going to sit there thinking, if someone finds that out, and there are many people I know who have that. Many people who have realised their mistakes.
Yeah, I think the best story of all for that, the vulnerabilities and someone doing all this sort of stuff, was David Goggins' story. I know we say, we sort of meme on him for saying the stay hard stuff, but like his life story and what he says in the books and his podcasts, his interviews it's just 100% authentic.
It's authentic, and it's also aware that you don't need to tell everybody everything. And I think that's the beauty of those close relationships, is that somebody like yourself, Tom, I would trust you with anything I say. And that's the beauty of those close friendships, because I think when you keep those things to yourself or to those who you trust, you have a much deeper respect for what others will give you. And I've heard things from people that are distressing, that are upsetting. But I've been told those things in confidence. And that weighs on your mind. It weighs on my mind a ton. The idea that I know things that are very upsetting, but no one else will really know.
It's worse when you hear about it from your friends as well.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it.
No.
But you can only do so much.
Exactly. And of course, that's a blessing in a weird way, because if somebody has given you that information, they trust you enough to tell you that. They trust you enough to know that you are somebody who is worth their salt. And I don't think there is, in terms of friendships, a higher mark of respect than that. To trust somebody with a secret. But it plays on your mind. Because you've got to carry that. A large reason why people tell secrets is to share the burden.
And it's also to get off their chest, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Because it helps. It really does help.
And that's the thing, is that you've got to be very aware of who you trust and who you tell people things. And I've learned that the hard way, in that I trusted somebody last year, or 2 years ago. He was no friend. And has that eroded my trust in people a bit? Yes.
But it's made you more aware that sort of thing happens.
And also it then means that the people around me who I do authentically trust with my life, I trust them to the 100th percentile. Because I know it's genuine, I know it's real. And that's the key difference, is that I now actually know what people's true intentions sometimes are. Because I got burned very badly by it. Wasn't fun. But, hey ho.
I think you'd rather learn that lesson, though, early on in your life than later on, though.
Oh, yeah, by a long way. At the end of the day, I don't have responsibilities right now. Of course, I have responsibilities. I've got a degree to study for. I've got a professional reputation to uphold. I've got people who rely on me. Don't rely on me that much, but people who still rely on me. I've got responsibilities, but I'm not paying a mortgage. I don't need to feed kids. I don't need to support a partner. I don't need to do any of this as it stands. I'd love to do that one day. But I don't need to do that right now. I've got the time now to really figure out, who do I want to be? I'm properly grown up now. I'll be 21 in 2 weeks' time. That isn't playing about numbers, is it? That isn't playing about numbers.
Young man, you're 4 years younger than me.
Yeah, sure. But also, the difference between 21 and 25 isn't that much different at this point, is it?
You'd be surprised how much can happen in 4 years.
Well, yeah.
How much you can change as a person.
There you go. And that's why I'm just letting life take me where it takes me. A plan has been set. That's happening. I can act as much as I want to, and I continue to act. But also, I can't force anything else apart from what I do. Can I? All I can do is make sure I'm better than I was yesterday. That's it. And if I fail, then I fail.
Life still goes on.
Yeah, life goes on. The next day will come, and it'll be, have you done better than tomorrow? That's all I can really control. I can't really control anything macro, anything large scale. I can just control the day. How I act, what I do, what I don't do, so on. Whatever happens in the next 40 years is going to happen. I can't stop that, can I?
No, you can control your fate.
I can change it.
But then you could say that your actions that you're trying to control your fate is also fate.
Yeah. I can try and change it slightly, but at the end of the day, things are going to happen in the future, and I won't know when it comes, but they're going to happen at some point. Life is quite finite in that sense, in that things either happen or they don't. There isn't really a middle way. Things either happen or they don't. I can try my hardest to make those things happen, but can I guarantee those things will happen because of it? No. So the pressure's off me slightly. I can work my hardest, but I can't control everything else. I can't control what everyone else does, what everyone else thinks and says and will do. That's already been proven to be. That doesn't work because you end up being paranoid 24/7 against other people.
Yeah. It's crazy to think, though, isn't it? Like, you've almost finished your degree.
Mental. It is mental. And I think the main reason why is that last year I did sacrifice essentially my entire uni experience. Not uni experience, quote unquote university experience.
Do you mean more your social life? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. The uni experience was the same, studying through the week, loved it, and I still love it now. But it was 2 commentaries a weekend, 1 commentary a weekend. Being social life on weekends didn't really exist. And without that, without the hard graft of 40 match commentaries over a 30-week period, and getting better at commentaries, getting better at presenting, I'm unable to send in demos to the BBC. So obviously I've benefited, but I look back on it and I realise, well, other people's second years are a lot more relaxed than yours was. Obviously, hopefully I'll come out of it with benefits. But I do sometimes think you didn't have, or you haven't had a straightforward university experience. Now, does anyone? That's up for debate. At least I haven't had the conventional university experience.
Have you sat down and spoken with your sister about this sort of thing? Because she started uni, didn't she?
Yeah, my sister just started uni, and I was happy to hear that she said she hadn't joined any societies in the first 6 weeks of term. And I was happy to hear that. She spent 6 weeks meeting flatmates, getting set on course, and she has taken it slow. And she's done what I didn't do, which I'm proud of her for that, because I think she'll be in a better position than I was. Obviously, I'm grateful as anything for the chances I've got, but it takes serious strength to keep that going for a long time. And it's a large part why, with the exception of BBC stuff, I have done nothing else this year apart from study. because I've got to make room for that.
You got to think about what's coming next, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
After uni life.
Yeah, basically. Which, obviously, I'm in a different position to most, because for some people they're trying to find jobs now, and touch wood, this is a stepping stone on to whatever that career is. But do I look at people going out in the town sometimes and think, I wish I'd done that? Yeah. Sometimes I do.
Just do what we did in our final year. We did it all in the space of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We would go out one night and be like, "Oh, this is the last night," and then we'd put in our flat group chat the next day. So tonight, and then we do it again, and then we keep doing it, and keep doing it, and keep doing it. And eventually, it became a thing called one more night. So we kept going one more night. And eventually, it got to the right, basically until our first flatmate had to leave. We kept doing it.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you get a chance to do it, but don't do it too much.
Yeah. I think that I'd like to enjoy being young and not get ahead of myself too much. And you can enjoy being young whilst also working hard, but it's also true that, at least in culture, the idea of being young is to be carefree.
Just get pissed every week,
Yeah.
basically.
Just be carefree, and that is a tempting idea. I haven't done that. Not a bad thing, not a good thing. It's somewhere in the middle. Either way, I think that at least it proves to me that basically the culture of being young, I think, is a bit of a misnomer. It's the culture that you're fed by the movies.
Yeah, I think it's also social media. I keep going back to the shit on it, but it's quite an easy target to do so. The idea of just drinking every single weekend.
Yeah.
Live for the weekend sort of style, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're working, but when you're younger, I think it's less responsibility that you have. Gives you more of that chance to go out and do that sort of thing.
Which fair enough.
But if you do, I think you can still do it when you're older, but it has more severe consequences, doesn't it?
Yeah, and fair enough. It's the case that for some people they can do it in a healthy way. I don't think I can. I can't do it now, given that I'm more busy than ever before. Even if, ironically, I feel a lot more relaxed now, despite being more busy than ever before, which is a paradox in itself. So, I do think that there is value to not having that conventional university experience sometimes. Because I think that, at least from a maturity level, I've benefited from, I think, just being a bit more level-headed sometimes. And there are times when I'm not level-headed, there are times when I'm the opposite. But, I don't know, it's a bit like the saying where you can have a 14-year-old that's grown up and a 40-year-old that's a kid.
It's very true. It's very true.
What would you rather be? The 14-year-old that's grown up and having to maybe do household tasks and maybe even work a job, or be the 40-year-old that's going out of town every night?
Or living in your parents' basement. Yeah, I think
it's
an easy choice though, isn't it, really? You'd rather be the 14-year-old.
But if you remove the stereotype and you're the 40-year-old that lives for the weekend and probably drinks a bit too much for his own good, I think you'd be surprised how many people would argue that they'd rather be the 40-year-old kid.
I guess because it's hard to admit to grow up though, isn't it?
Because growing up is easy, growing up is very hard. Growing up is hard. And that's why I feel that for my sister, as she's left home for the first time, I'm happy how she started, because she has kept grounded. I think that's the best thing. It's easy to lose your head sometimes at that point, 18 years old. She stayed grounded, and I'm proud of her for that. And it's, yeah, something that people probably know if you're close is that I am very much that older brother stereotype. I am very much older brother stereotype. And that's something I think I've always had since I was very young. It's that idea that you want to keep an eye on them. And I'm learning now not to do that. I'm learning now to respect my sisters for the young adults that they are now. And that's a weird thing for your psyche too. Because all I've known since I was about 4 years old was make sure they're okay. Now that wasn't told to me. That was just something I made up myself, really, and it just kept sticking again and again and again and again. I'm unlearning that now. That's difficult in itself, because they're not 6 months and 18 months old anymore. They're 16 and 18. 17 and 18. But this isn't... You're not talking about newborns here, are you?
No, you're not.
It sounds stupid, but it's true, isn't it? Particularly at uni, where the stories I hear would make you, as an older brother of 2 sisters, make your stomach turn.
What stories can you think of?
The idea that many people will look at a woman as someone to gratify what they want. That's what makes my stomach turn. And I don't think I'll ever be able to shift that sort of protective thing, where it's, no, anything happens, I'm there. But also, it's also just the way that people, I think, talk about women our age. I think it's very, very worrying.
I think what I find more worrying is what was happening. A big thing in my first year before you came here was the spiking and stuff that was happening at Unit 1, which is a club that's now closed down, but other clubs as well, where women are getting spiked and stuff and just stabbed with needles, and it's crazy that people think that's okay.
I think we're regressing now with that, and that's something that as men I think we need to call out sometimes, all the time, because I think that it goes unchecked far too easily sometimes. I hope from the bottom of my heart that I have taught my sisters and the same thing goes to my dad. My dad did it first, obviously. But I hope that my dad, in fact I know my dad has taught my sisters what a man worth their time looks like, acts like, sounds like. And I hope that I've taught them what a man or a boy their age should do and shouldn't do. I hope that those that haven't had those figures around can still get that
From
lesson
someone
learned.
else. Yeah. It could be someone online. That's a natural positive
Yeah,
role model for
exactly.
the world.
I really think that it's a regression. It's a regression that started a few years back and it's just keeping going now.
Well, I don't think it's as bad as it was from the 50s.
Oh, of course, but as in, I think that because we got to the point where everything was as good as it could have been, or as good as it ever had been, we all got a bit complacent and thought, well, it's okay, isn't it? Then you see cases spiking. Oh, did we get a bit too relaxed here? I thought it was the best we'd ever had it. I thought everything was great. I thought we were the most fair people that have ever existed. Now, in fairness, scientifically and historically, progress is always going to track upwards when it comes to issues of things like this, issues of equality, issues of tolerance, whatever. It's always going to track up. It's very rare you see a spike down. Unless
How do you mean?
Pardon?
How do you mean?
As
How does it go up?
What was there before is always more difficult to prove that it should remain. There's always going to be a grass is always greener argument to what's already there. Because psychologically, we always think the grass is greener. Even if it's a logical fallacy, or even if it's something that isn't true, or isn't good for us. We're always going to think the grass is greener. Now, that's not a good thing. But for the sake of this scenario, it is. Because we're always going to wanting to be doing bit more. And not over a year, but over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you're going to see that tracking up. And I hope it does. Because I just think that culturally, we're all so complacent sometimes. I don't know. If there's one thing I'll pin my hat on, I've done it with Expression Sport, and I've championed women's sport. I hope I did at least. I'm proud to say that I was at every Chiefs and City women game I could go to. I'm proud of that. Because that's on my record, and also that proves what I blooming think. Because I'm doing it. I think it so much, I'm doing it. I'm proud of that. I just think that as men, I think we need to figure out really what's right about that. Because I will tell you this, the amount of boys, and I'll say boys, the amount of boys our age, if they had a daughter, would they want someone to treat their daughter that way?
Or their sister.
Or their sister.
Have a guy's treat her.
Yeah.
Their sister like that.
No. That's that. But the key thing is that that's going to take them maybe 15 years to understand if they didn't have a sister growing up. And by that point, well, too much time has passed, hasn't it? I don't know. I just think it's common sense to
Just to treat others.
respect all people.
Well, it's that golden rule, isn't it? Treat others as how you wish to be treated. You know, that also includes banter and jokes as well. You know,
Yeah.
what you joke with someone, make sure that they've joked that same sort of thing back to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I can understand that some people say, "Oh, it's the humour police coming in," or it's the cancel culture. If you're saying something that is genuinely reprehensible, then it should be called reprehensible. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not the humour police coming in.
I guess it depends on where you put it, though. You know.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I feel like also I have a very dark sense of humour, and I joke about very dark things with my friends, but I know not to post that online.
Yeah, because not everyone else is going to get that sense of humour.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were saying earlier, people can misunderstand, or there could be a misunderstanding of what's been said.
Yeah.
You know, someone could think that's serious when it's a joke, but yeah, I think once you realise that once you post it online, you have to understand that someone's always going to misinterpret that. You know.
Yeah, because they know you from a 10-second impression. We as individuals online in this world, we are effectively, even if we like to hide it by saying, "Oh, my account's private," we are, whenever you put something online, we are in front of an audience of the world. Everyone. We like to act like we're not because there's a little padlock next to our account name. No, we are broadcasting to the world. That's going to stay on the internet forever. That's going to be there. And I think once you realise that, I think that's when you realise that social media is marketing. That's how I treat it now. Social media is a marketing tool. Social media isn't the place for, at least this is my view, the place for you to talk about the things that you would want people to know, or talk about things that are close to your heart sometimes, unless you're willing to defend that. Because the court of public opinion is always in service, and there's always a jury waiting to deliberate. There's always going to be a jury service there for the court of public opinion. There's going to be at least 12 people there that's going to look at that. At least 12. A lot more than 12, more like 12,000. So, treat it as marketing. If I seem on social media like I'm putting on a smile all the time, well, yeah, it's because I know it's marketing. Of course, it's marketing. But I've got to do it. Does that make me disingenuous? Not really, because the way I'm writing, the way I'm presenting it, it's clear to see that I'm using it as a marketing tool.
I always feel like, though, whenever you post on social media, no matter who you are, you always are sacrificing your soul a little. You always have to put on a bit of professionalism and a bit of, I like to say, kiss-arsery. I think that's a good way of putting it. I think LinkedIn is probably the worst. LinkedIn is, I'm so grateful for.
I was delighted to work with these people. I had the pleasure, all of those random.
I'm gratefully honoured.
Yeah, I'm gratefully honoured.
And I'm so humbled.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the worst example for it. Because everything is the happiest day you've ever had. Everything is amazing. Everything is a pleasure. Everything was delightful. Everything was an honour. It's all so positively minded. And because it's all positively minded, I don't think anyone takes it genuinely seriously. That's the thing. I don't really take it that seriously. I post on there, but it's more because I look at it as a walking CV.
That's a very good way of looking at it, though.
I look at it as a rolling CV. And it gives me more room than one A4 page for my resume. So of course I'm going to be presenting my best face forward, because in a resume I'm not going to tell you all the bad stuff, am I? Oh yeah, that exam I lost a few marks with a typo. Turned up late for work once here when I was working at a bar. I'm not going to hand you a resume saying that, am I? So treat LinkedIn the same. And that's why I treat Instagram the same and Twitter the same. It's all saying me, look at me. And that's fine, because you've got to do that. I've got to do that. Necessary evil. That's okay. I hope that we can one day come to a world where, particularly media, where engagement and creativity isn't driven by clicks, and by hashtags, and by if the title of your video is going to get clicks on a search. I hope we can get back to that point. I don't think we are going to get back to that point.
I don't think we'll ever get to that point.
You know what?
To be
I may
honest,
as well run with it. I may as well run with it and just stick with the trend.
I think we never will get to that because it's how you make money, isn't it?
Yeah. So, as it stands for me, I may as well just learn how to do it, and that's that. And you know what? If people unfollow me, then great, because at the end of the day, it's all marketing. If I get an advert on the telly, I can just go zap, turn the telly off. Same thing online.
Just turn your phone off or
Turn your phone off, unfollow,
get some fresh air.
bye-bye. That's it. So you know what? If you ever sit there on Instagram or on Twitter thinking, oh, Joseph's posted again about radio this, can't be bothered, I welcome you to unfollow me. Please do it. For the sake of your own time. And I'm not saying that to be an idiot. I'm saying that as in just, please, I really don't mind. I really don't mind. Do it. You are the most important person, not any of these personas that you see online. Everyone's got an online persona. They just don't want to admit it. I've got one. You've got one. Everyone's got one. Everyone's got an online persona. If we admit it, then there's no issues.
How did you actually get into the media? Because we're go back a little bit, but you were the big car guy,
Yeah.
big into car, and it became what, podcasts in first year? Was it the?
So podcast is second year actually. I've been told that I just read a lot of newspapers when I was a kid. Read lots of newspapers quite early on, and also when I was about 6 or 7. I went through a phase when I would just write down facts and figures from football games. And I'd take a notepad and I'd just write out league tables, I'd write out goals, I'd write out results, I'd write out history and facts.
Would you be like things like writing our 5-0 down again?
Yeah,
just like last weekend.
It would be like league table 2009, 2006, 2007. And I'd just write it down and I'd look at key results. So there was that. So from young, I already had that interest in, I think, the analytical side, or at least I had that analytical brain at least to be like, well, this is interesting to me. So there's that. And then I ended up playing sport. I joined my cricket club, played there for 10 years. Still love to play to this day. Practically spent all my midweek and weekends there over the space of 10 years. Without cricket, I don't know. I don't think I would have had a nice outlet for all of the pent-up frustration you have when you're a 10-year-old who's essentially annoyed at yourself for not being perfect. I think that was a good way of letting it out. So thanks, Dad, for taking me down to the SAFs. And I fell into the media at uni. I fell into it, really. I remember it was like the first week of term, and I went through all the guild societies. I made a big old checklist, all the societies that were vaguely interesting to me, and I just ticked them off one by one by one by one. I ended up with about 5 or 4 left. Expression, the radio station, the newspaper, and bench ball. There was one ball, which was, top memory, I think it was 5-a-side football. cleared that off. That was it. So I joined only those 3 societies in first year. I committed all into expose and expression, went along to sessions for benchball, but I fell into it really. And I think the thing that I love about it to this day is the idea of meeting somebody. Because, take now. I'm talking to you, Tom, but there is somebody watching and listening to this right now who I cannot see. To that person, it's lovely to meet you. And that's what I love. I can have a conversation with somebody without ever seeing them or knowing their name.
And they could be really enjoying this conversation.
Exactly. That could be a new friend of mine. And it could be a new friend of mine that I'll probably never meet again. But I've still made a friend. And that's what I love. In that, if you look at radio as a conversation with somebody who you cannot see and you may never see again, that's when you truly grasp, I think, why radio and podcasts are so popular. Because you're not just talking to whoever you're with in the room or you're interviewing, you're talking to everyone who's listening.
And to those that are listening, you feel like you're a part of a conversation.
Exactly.
You know, I mentioned it to the previous guest, Francis, that I used to listen to Joe Rogan during the lockdown era, and that really made me feel less alone.
Yeah.
You know, working from 2 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock and then going to my other job because I had to pay for my tuition to get here. It was that feeling of, am I going to be able to do this sort of thing? You know, or is anyone actually there for me to talk to? And it was listening to his conversations and stuff that he has with people, you know.
And that was why the podcast happened in second year, Accelerate, because that was me talking as someone who knew their stuff, hopefully knows their stuff about the car industry. Hope I do.
I hope so.
And talking to somebody who maybe knew nothing about cars, but trying to explain it to them in the simplest way I could. Because it's all well and good me showing people I know my stuff. But if I'm actually teaching you something, that's even better. If I'm teaching you something every time you listen, amazing. And I think that's what I loved about it, was that it was the idea of talking to someone and having that regular conversation with someone. Because at the end of the day, if you're listening to something or you're watching something, you're in the room without being in the room. You've got to sell where you are. You've got to sell who's there, what you're talking about. It's all about how you present what's going on in that conversation. And that's the beauty of it, is that you are performing for somebody else. Take yesterday. I'm commentating a football game. There might be somebody listening to that commentary from hundreds of miles away. I've got to tell them what's going on, and I've got to say it in a way that reflects what's going on. I've got to match the game. I've got to figure out what's the right way of saying that, what's the right word, what's the right tone, the right speed. That's the art of it, is being able to put someone somewhere, even if they're hundreds of miles away. And that is the ultimate storyteller role, I think.
Do you have any commentators that you look up to that have influenced your style of commentating?
I look up to Jonathan Agnew of Test Match Special a lot. And I look up to him because cricket commentary is very different to football. So, for reference, cricket commentary is more like top of the 12th, running in comes Cummins, half tracker, it's going to zip past the bat straight to the keeper. Very, very flat. Sometimes not very exciting, it's just talking about things in a simple way possible. And the thing that Aggers does so well is he knows when to raise the energy, when to raise the volume. He knows to suck you into that setting, that environment, that atmosphere at exactly the right moment. And also he does it in a way that you know it's him. And I don't really give a monkeys if people don't like listening to my commentary, because at the end of the day, there are plenty of other commentators out there that do a better job than me, or as good a job as me. I'm still learning. But also because I can't really change my style that much. I sort of know that I talk a bit like this on commentary. Torquay United playing the ball into midfield. Shot comes in, rattles against the bar.
Do you remember your first commentary? What that was like?
It was awful. Awful. It was Fleetwood Town, Exeter City. I kept repeating a phrase. I think the phrase was something like "in contrast." And I said it about 10 times over 4 minutes worth of speaking time. It was bad. Really bad. And also I kept stuttering my words. I don't have a stutter. What I mean by that is I was talking so quickly that I would get stuck on the first syllable.
Was it because you're so nervous you wanted to get so much
I
out?
was so nervous. So nervous. Also, I'm so loud, it's a joke. But I listen back now, I listen to what I was doing yesterday, and it's so unbelievably different. In a good way. And I love that because it shows that even from that point, I was still trying to get better at it. Even if then I didn't really know if I wanted to go big on it and pour hours into it in the first place. Because that's a different me on that commentary, different experiences. You could hear it in the voice, actually. You could hear it in the voice. And that's what I love, is that the art of listening to someone's voice change over time, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Even to recognise it as well, though.
To recognise that voice, I think, is a beautiful thing. Eyesight can fail. Speech fails later. 9 times out of 10. Even if you're asleep, you can be talking. So I think I love the fact that you can recognise someone's voice and also grow into a conversation with somebody. Because that, I think, is the key to bringing people together sometimes, is just being able to sit down with someone, have a conversation with them, and I'll probably never see them again. I don't even know who they are. But they're listening to you. They're listening to you, so you should talk back.
As if they are listening.
Yeah.
Even if they're not.
And even if they don't like it when you're talking to them, still talk to them. Because you can't change how they respond, as I said earlier on. You can only do what you can do. So if I get messages on fan forums saying, this guy's delivery is so annoying, why have they let a student commentate a football game?
What fan forum was it?
Exeter City.
There's an actual fan forum for
Yeah.
it?
They were searching up my LinkedIn page, trying to find my Twitter. Yeah. I mean, I laughed about it because I knew, firstly, no one was going to message me. No one would message me because at the end of the day, I'm a 20-year-old university student. It was my second commentary. I mean, I wasn't expecting to get people giving me grief online. But actually, that was when I talked about it earlier on in terms of that you're broadcasting to everybody. That's what I truly realised about online footprint. Because they could find my details. What's the difference of them doing that? Well, they can talk to you. I've never met these people ever before. And they could talk to me if they wanted to. If you're going to be professional, you've got to expect a level of scrutiny. And that's fine. I'm happy with that. I'll live with that. But at least I know it now. At least I know there is that level of scrutiny. You're not going to get that if you're working an office job, are you?
No, you're not.
Which is okay.
It depends on what your ambitions are, though, in life.
Sure, but if you're just working as a staff member in HR, you're not going to get that level of scrutiny, are you?
Not that level of scrutiny, but I'm sure there's other ways you can get scrutiny.
Sure, but scrutiny from people that aren't even related to where you're working. Just members of the public. I'm okay with that because I've got a strong backbone. I can deal with that. I've dealt with worse. I've dealt with much worse. But goes as a warning almost. You need to grow a strong backbone to not be taken back by it. Because I saw it at first and I laughed. I saw it and I laughed.
Or the comments.
Yeah, I laughed, and then I was talking to someone else who was at the game, and I said, I must be doing something right if I'm being criticised. I laughed it off. And I was truly laughing it off. It wasn't a defensive move to try and deflect. No. I genuinely was laughing it off. Because it was funny. It was funny. Yeah.
I don't think you're going to remember these comments though in 10 years' time, though, are you?
Exactly.
Or you might do, and you might look back on it. And it's like this is the milestone of the first criticism that you.
But that's the point. Is that I was thinking, well, is this significant? No. Great. So be it. Rock and roll. Keep going, sort of thing.
It's quite interesting. You got criticism for the extra city stuff, but not for the BBC Devon stuff.
Well, Torquay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, not just Torquay, but the other ones that you've done as well.
But I think that's just because Exeter is a bigger club. Nothing against the club, nothing against people there. They're all amazing people. I've got great relationships with those people and the club, and I think I'd call myself friends of people behind the scenes, which I'm happy to say. But it's a bigger club, bigger fan base. You expect it. That's fine. That's okay. You expect there to be that level of scrutiny on you. Everyone in the club laughed with me. It was hilarious as anything. They were laughing with me. It was fine. I really couldn't mind. It's just, as long as you actually care about the things that matter, nothing can really be much of an issue to you. Because the scrutiny that matters is when I get a phone call from my boss saying, here are the things I would have done differently. Here are some tips.
Well, that's not really scrutiny, it's more feedback.
Yeah, feedback. Exactly, feedback. So that's when you listen and say, thank you. Thank you for your advice. That's when it matters. I think if you're able to take criticism and also not take it seriously, then you just keep rolling on, really. I don't think everyone is as well equipped to deal with it as quickly as I did. I'll admit that. I think that's a skill you learn. I've learnt it the hard way by having to grow a backbone in terms of having to deal with things that most people shouldn't have to deal with. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but it has been a blessing in disguise in terms of nothing really can ruffle my feathers as it stands. Really. Nothing's gonna ruffle my feathers to the point where I'm gonna lose all confidence. But it won't. Trust me, it won't. It's fine.
Do you see yourself doing more, or this being your career now, BBC, Devon, football,
I'd love
or
it. I'd love it.
other sports, cricket maybe?
Pardon?
What do you think it's most likely going to be, football now, or sport, or other sports like cricket?
Well, as it stands, I've been lucky to have opportunities in football. I'd love to branch out to other sports. Cricket is my sport that I played, sport I love, sport I would call my number one sport. I think that is the dream of dreams, is to do cricket commentary. But as it stands, the chances I've got have been in football. I'd love to do football. I could do most things. I could do rugby, I could do snooker, darts, tennis. I could learn baseball if you wanted me to. I mean, I could do anything that you give me. Cricket would be the dream. But all I know is that whatever I get after this year, hopefully, is always going to be because of what I've done so far. And actually, that's why I don't really put pressure on myself. All I know is that I can do the best I can in that commentary, or the best I can on that shift, on that training day, so that people get a good reputation of me. It's out of my hands if they give me anything.
You've done what you can.
I've done what I can. I can apply for things, that's different. I can assert myself in situations, but I can't. The moment I click submit on that application, it's up for them to decide if they want to give me that job.
A great quote that I got from Larry Elder. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You know the name? He was running as a Republican candidate, and he said his dad had a quote, which was, "You control the effort, but not the outcome." And I think that's a perfect way of putting it.
Exactly. So that's why I'm very relaxed. Is the wrong word, but I am not too overworked or stressed about it, because I know that what I'm doing is, to most students, it seems far-fetched.
Well, not just students, but people
Or just people
who
in
actually
general.
just haven't gone to uni or have,
Yeah.
working full time. They're looking at this and thinking,
People
this is
have
insane.
People have prayed for the opportunities that I've had. I've got to make use of them. But I also know that I back my skills and I back myself. So, however things go, I know that I'll continue. Life goes on. Life goes on, regardless of what happens. All I can do is respond. That's all I can do. The thing is that I'm in a privileged position. I will have done 4 batch commentaries by the end of November. There's, 7 months left of the academic year. Who knows how many by the end of that? That's not for me to decide. All I hope is that I can do the best I can, and that I'm doing the things that they want me to do. And I listen to feedback, I listen to what they think, and I can work on things that I'm not doing well. I'm learning. I'm always learning. I'm never going to stop learning. So, as it stands, I can't really do much more than what I'm doing. I can't force their hand. I'm not going to storm into a business meeting and go, give me a job now. No.
Doesn't work that way, though.
It doesn't work. That's not how humans work. And particularly now, as it becomes more and more difficult to get a job after you graduate.
Well, yeah, you speak that, and I also mentioned that in the previous episode to Francis, that I've got several of my friends, mutual friends, that are still struggling to find jobs.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. But
It's a shame, because unless you've got those skills that essentially no one else has, in your case, production skills and work in videography, in my case, radio broadcasting, you are a step behind. And that's where I think sometimes the university system can fail students, is that the emphasis is on qualifications, not on skills.
yeah, it's more on get a first, but don't get a 2-1 with a lot of extracurricular stuff.
Yeah. if the emphasis was placed on skills, more people would get jobs out of their degree.
Probably a lot of degrees wouldn't exist as well,
Yeah,
which is harsh to say, but it's the truth.
it is, and that's actually that's kind of why, bizarrely, people often take a pop at arts degrees. And I'd argue that arts degrees actually fit that criteria. You're learning the skill.
Depends on what the art degree is, though, and what they do in that degree. I think it's more of the art extracurricular stuff is more.
Arts in general, let's say.
Yeah, I'd say arts in general, not per se just the module or the degrees itself.
Yeah. As in, I would say that I think if you're learning skills in that position, the qualification is less important because you're going to use that in the workplace, aren't you? Whereas if you learn how to write a great essay about history, but you can't talk to a room of 50 people, good luck getting a job working for an agency or working for a museum or working for a research group where you've got to give presentations. I do think the emphasis should be on skills. And I say that as a student of a degree where everything's based on essays, with the exception of one exam I've got this year, which is a presentation. But that's that. I mean, the amount of people that I see in my course who are very clever, very smart, but also academic machines that would do well working for a university, but the chances that you become that lead lecturer in international relations are quite low.
Or the fact that you get a job as a lecturer as well, because of how competitive it could be as a market.
Exactly. So I think if you move to a skills-based economy as it is, I think that would be an interesting decision to make.
Yeah.
Personally.
But I guess it's also going back to what we just said about a lot of degrees wouldn't exist and then a lot of money wouldn't be made.
There you go. It's an economic decision as much as it's a skills decision, which is a shame, because I don't think skills should be chained by money.
I think it should be the essential thing that you taught at uni,
Yeah.
or any education in general.
Yeah. Because as it stands, lots of people don't even want to go to university because they see no point in spending all the money in the first place.
It's very expensive, and you have a lot of sympathy for those that generally can't afford to go.
Yeah, that's why I was saying earlier on that I'm blessed to be in this position, because I will be paying off a loan for the rest of my working life, basically. Near enough the rest of my working life for 30 years, give or take maybe 10, 15 years. Which is daunting when you think about it, but also...
It's not actually that long though, is it really? It's what, 40 years?
Well, it's 40 years if you started university, or if you're going to start university next year, I think, depending on which band you're on, because it's a whole new system they've made up.
What's the system? The new system?
So the system, it's now tiered in terms of income. So if you start next year, there's an extra tier, which is over 40 years instead of 30, so on. And either way, you're paying it back regardless, because taxpayer money goes into it anyways. So, as a student who's got lucky, obviously hard work's gone into it, but got lucky a bit when it's come to sending a hit and hope email in August and getting something from it.
Well, you create your own luck though, do you not?
Yeah, exactly. So, creating my own luck.
Well, you create your luck and you realise that you are lucky to accept. No, you accept that you are lucky as well.
Yeah. So, creating my own luck, I got lucky and I got my foot in the door. Lots of people won't have had that foot in the door, and that's the truth of it, really. And it's up to the universities to fix that, I think.
It is. It really is. Joe, man, it's almost 2 hours in.
Is it?
How quick has that gone?
That's gone quick.
Absolutely crazy. The reason I cut you off now is because my phone's about to go in the next minute or two.
Is it?
And guess where I left it? On the other side of the room.
Yep.
So, Joe, man, I want to say massive thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
For taking the time as well out of your day.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you. I really appreciate it as well. You know, I owe you coming on due to what happened with the other podcast that I tried doing in my last year of uni, and the fact that I didn't record, I didn't have your audio turned up. But this has been one of my favourite podcasts, I'd say, man.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely fantastic. Before we say goodbye, is there any social medias or any of your social media accounts that you want people to follow?
Follow me on X, FKA Twitter. Still need to say that these days. J_W Terry. If you want to watch me talk about Devon's sport as of November 2024.
So it's got uploaded 2025. It's a bit redundant. No, it won't be. Joe, man, love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you
for taking the time.